And so, it begins. Dark were the skies and chill was the wind as the land was covered in a veil of malice. Across the hill did ride a dread army of the night, cloaked in mist and fog, prepared to rain down death and destruction upon the land. And the people did crowd for a savior, a noble soul to save them from their impending demise. Just as it seemed all was lost, in strode a mighty hero, clad in shivering metal from head to toe. Wielding a terrible broadsword, he did cleave his foes in two, smashing their ranks asunder with righteous fury. And when the day was done and the enemy strewn across the fields in pieces, the people did turn to the warrior and say, "We shall name this day in your honor. Speak unto us your wisdom." The warrior said one word that day: epic.
One man, one Murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Please. It begins now. Yes, indeed, folks. Welcome to Blue Please on WoW Radio. The date today is the 6th of February, 2009. It is 8 p.m. GMT. In other times, it is other places. I'm Total Biscuit, as always, and you are listening to WCRadio.com. What have we got coming up for you in the show today? Well, if any of you were hoping that perhaps things might get a little bit more positive, no, that's not going to happen at all. So, if you do not like being confronted with reality, then I would suggest you tune out now, because you're entering the no-spin zone, pinheads, and so forth. Yes, I'm getting more and more of these kind of comments. It's like, you're one of these right-wing kind of radio guys. You're Rush Limbaugh, or Sean Hannity, or Bill O'Reilly. And I'm like, oh, really? And I'm like, oh well. It's fine. It is funny and interesting to note that in America, the vast majority of people that listen to political talk radio listen to these people. Like, is it for the entertainment value, or do you actually agree with these people? Well, in my case, I would hope that it would be both. So what have we got coming up for you in the show today? Well, we'll of course be doing the mailbag, but we have an interesting topic, actually. This happened a couple of days ago, I believe. Was it a couple of days ago, or was it yesterday? I can't remember. It's epic one way or the other. Yes, I did just say epic. It is amazing. It involves EVE Online and an interesting little event that went down over the past few days, and I'll be talking about that and comparing EVE Online to WoW as kind of two completely opposite sides of the spectrum, and the reason sometimes that it's okay to be a Care Bear game. Also, I had to leave my guild, and why it's Blizzard's fault, and the amazing, fantastic, and heartwarming story of the 800 DPS rogue that walked away with 2 pieces of tier 7.5. Why the Vault of Archeron represents everything that's wrong with the current system in Wrath raiding. And of course, at the end of the show, as always, the interactive section of the show, the illusion of choice. Someone clearing that up, please? Yes, indeed. You get to submit your topics for the last 15 minutes or so of the show, and the illusion of choice will give you that ability. All you need to do is email themurloc@gmail.com. That is themurloc@gmail.com for your chance to pick the last topic of the show. And this chair is going down and down. Seriously, I'm sinking at this point. I have this sinking feeling. Let me adjust it for a moment. Sadly, the gas lift on this chair doesn't work quite so well, because unfortunately it's a very nice leatherback chair, and of course the one thing that had to be wrong with it was the thing which actually, keeps it upright. A little bit unfortunate, I tend to find when you're dealing with chairs. Oh well, never mind. Right. Well, we've gone through the introduction section, which means we get to go to this!
Mail time!
That sounds like it's mail time!
here's the mail.
It never fails.
It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes,
I want to wail.
Oh, yes. The mailbag, where we go through the mail, as you might expect. It's barely even a feature. I mean, so many podcasts do this. Half of our podcasts do this, like, we read the mail. And people seem to like it, because for some reason it's some kind of interactive feature. Yeah, I think it's just a really cheap excuse to fill 15 minutes, but who am I to stand in the way of tradition? So let's get started. Alright, I've got an interesting email here from Biox. Yes, indeed. And he says this. Hey TB, love the show. Just a quick note to say that I pretty much agree with you about the Wrath of the Lich King content. I come from what you would class as a casual guild, in that we have a limited amount of time to throw at the game, yet we're finding ourselves decidedly unchallenged. In fact, the raiding content hasn't seemed in any way difficult since the 3.0 patch. It just felt like one big zerg since then. Here's hoping that Uldwar will be a challenge. That's Leonicus of White Hand on Proudmoore, US. Yeah, see, this is what I've been saying. I've been saying this. It's like, casual players, real casual players, they are not the kind of people that whine about difficulty. No, not at all. Generally, they suck it up and get on with it and accept that maybe they can't do everything. And that's okay, because there's still plenty of content regardless. And I've got a lot of respect for that. I've got a lot of time for that kind of player. They're not the ones that don't want to be unchallenged. I mean, I can't understand why anyone would just want cheap epics or free epics. Why is that? I mean, it's like, I liken it to Bioshock. Bioshock, wonderfully pretty game. Great story. Sinfully easy in pretty much every respect. And that really, really put a downer on the game for me. I mean, had that game been more difficult, I would have given it, I'd be like, this game is like the best game of 2008. Or was it 2007? Might be 2007. Whatever. But I recently picked up Bioshock again in the Steam sale on the PC. I used to have it on the 360, beat it, took it back. Got it again on Steam sale for like $3.50 or something ridiculous like that. And I installed a difficulty mod, as well as the recent patch. Now, the patch allows you to turn off the Vita tubes in the game, which means you can't just respawn at will and just go and kill whatever it is you failed to kill. Now, I combined that with the difficulty mod, which has made the game ridiculously hard. It's like halved at least the amount of ammunition you get. It's made the wrench pretty much utterly useless. It's made all of the enemies do twice as much damage. There's no respawns. Everything's more difficult to hack. Everything's more expensive. It's actually really good because you have to be really creative. And I thought that was always something that I found was a really good idea in Bioshock. That you got to be really creative with the plasmids. Do all these different things. But you didn't need to in the original game because you just rolled over everything. And I liken that to WoW. It's like, you got all these wonderful abilities and this extra class to be creative with, but you don't need to because you can just roll over the content. Yes, it's very pretty. Yes, it's kind of fun the first time. Yes, the storyline is great. But that doesn't mean it's a challenging game. And all that means is you're going to roll through it very fast, and you're going to wonder, well, oh dear, this great piece of content, I've just rolled all over it, and now I'm bored. Bioshock suffers from the same problem that Wrath does. Difference being, of course, that Bioshock made some efforts to fix it, and I would hope that Wrath does the same. And of course, Uldwar being the Great White Hope, hopefully will involve something like that. I certainly hope so. Otherwise, I'll be playing my rogue till the end of time. And yes, my main is actually now a rogue of all things. I'll explain that later on in the show when I talk about leaving my guild and why it happened. And it wasn't their fault. It wasn't mine either. That's the crazy thing, and that's a pretty unusual situation. Talking about that a little bit later on the show. Anyway, let's get some more mail done. We have lots of them. Australia bans MMO selling. This is quite interesting. It's from Varian, the Night Elf Death Knight of Moonglade EU, and says this: I would like to hear your opinion about the following article that came up my IGN. According to a report in the Sydney Morning Herald, the Australian government is banning the sale of any video game that does not have a specific type of rating given to them by the Australian Classification Board. This means that any game that does not have a single-player experience, like every MMO on the planet, is now technically banned from selling, since a game without a single-player mode is not allowed to be considered for a rating. Now, since I was advocating the use of ratings boards a long time ago, this person was wondering what I thought about this. Well, it seems to me that the idea of not rating MMOs is very, very silly. Yes, I understand the idea that you can't really predict what's going to happen online, but you can still rate the content. And then you can just say, hey, it's got a multiplayer mode. I mean, it doesn't seem to stop anyone else. We've got all of these other games that have multiplayer modes and that are made incredibly miserable by people being jerks. And if you've got like everything on Xbox Live, you go on there and you're pretty much bombarded with 13-year-olds calling you a whatever it is that I cannot say on air. Every word under the sun, and them some that I've never even heard of. They just made them all up. That's going to happen, and yet it doesn't stop them from selling those. No, it's what it should be judged on is the content. And then it should have a little warning. It says, hey, look, might change. That's what the ESRB rated stuff has. It's like, hey, the game experience might change online. In fact, it will change online. In the case of WoW, it's like, well, this is the content you're going to have to be dealing with. There's a lot of violence. You know, there's a mild amount of sexuality in the game. You could possibly argue a mild amount of drug use, perhaps with the Blood Elves there. No harsh language. Torture is in the game, so you can add that in there. And then you say, right, it's also got people in it, so, you know, deal with it. It's like, you know what, life doesn't have a rating sticker on it. If I walk outside, I could be verbally assailed by anyone at any moment. Doesn't mean that I got restricted from going outside. I can't really figure out their rationale there. Just seems to me that their rating system is a little bit out of date. But interestingly enough, I saw a recent article that says that they haven't taken it off sale at all and that stores actually don't care. And rightfully so. What are they going to do? I mean, seriously. You know, if they start banning games from large international companies, they're going to find themselves slapped with a few lawsuits. Australia's always been really bad for this kind of thing. They're horrendous when it comes to video game censorship. And I really can't figure out why, of all things. I don't know, maybe it's just because it's originally a nation of criminals. They're a little bit paranoid that they might revert. Yes, that was borderline racist. Deal with it. I'm British, I can say these kind of things. We sent you over there in the first place. And unfortunately, you then broadened out and blossomed into this wonderful society that has really bad beer. And now apparently can't play cricket very well. Oh well, never mind. One of the many problems with the state of the world at the moment. What else have we got? Well, there are many things I can say. I've got about 5 minutes left of this particular segment. So I'm going to read out this one here. This one is, greetings, TB. My name is Scott Palmer. I've been a long time listening to all the shows, though Blue Please is by far my favourite show. Well, thank you very much. Just finished listening to your most recent episode, Rose Tinted, between classes, and wanted to applaud the delivery of your opinion and say that I agree completely. I ran a raid guild that cleared Kara to Reliquary of Souls, and while I never got the opportunity to raid pre-BC, I say that I loved the BC raid content. Yes, indeed. Kale, to this day, is my favourite fight in all of WoW. He and Vash just felt so epic when he took them down. 25 people screaming over vent when they hit 0%. The memories I will never forget. I see no moments like that with Wrath content. While I'm hoping things will get better with Old WoW and crossing my fingers, I'm desperately worried about the state of the game as it is, and the effect that Blizzard's overcompensation and the entitled casual are having up on it. Yeah. The reason that Vash and Kale were so awesome when he finally took them down was because they were hard. And I've been accused by some people of having rose-tinted spectacles and ignoring the fact that both of those encounters had bugs in them. Yes, they did, initially, but you've got to bear in mind that I raided them after they were fixed, and they were still challenging. They were very challenging. Vash was a hard fight. Really hard fight. It took a lot of coordination, it was an unorthodox strategy, and it was a lot of fun. Kale, 5 phases of pain. But very good, felt very good when he beat it. Very original, great encounter. Regardless of the bugs. The bugs were fixed, and it was still challenging. The problem is there isn't anything in Wrath with that kind of difficulty. Malagos comes close, Sarth 3 Drakes comes close, but it ain't there. And the thing is, the rest of the instance was relatively challenging as well. And you always look at the end of tier bosses. They're always going to be the most challenging, particularly in TBC and Classic. You found that those bosses were just absolute pains. Really hard. Big jump in difficulty. But the rest of the instance was quite challenging too. I mean, look at SSC. Think of the challenging fights. Hydros took a lot of precision. Lurker was the loot boss, I'll accept that. But Morgrim Tidewalker was pretty difficult. Kareth the Thras, or whatever his name was relatively tricky. And of course we had Leothorus the Blind, which was also quite a hard encounter. In Tempest Keep it wasn't quite so good, but I would say that Alar was definitely challenging, even though Solarian and Void Reaver really weren't. You know, that's a pretty good ratio of challenging encounters. What does Wrath have in comparison? 2 hard encounters, one of which is an optional difficulty mode? I'm not buying it. You know, I'd like an actual challenging instance. Now, I've actually just had an interesting contact here regarding the legal status of This only just came in, actually. This is from, we have friends in high places. This is from Danielle, who is our PR contact at Blizzard, who has just got in touch with us to say this. Hello, everyone. We wanted to get the word out to you on the latest information that's been circulating in regard to the legal status of sales of World of Warcraft in Australia. There's been a lot of wrong information circulated, and we want to make sure you have the most accurate information to update your communities with. Our official stance is as follows. Blizzard Entertainment and its affiliates work very closely with the Interactive Entertainment Association of Australia to ensure that we are in full compliance with Australian law as it relates to the distribution and operation of our games, including World of Warcraft. We'd like to assure all of our players that World of Warcraft is currently and has always been distributed and operated legally in Australia. Best regards, Blizzard. Well, there you go. Interesting piece of information for you there. Just released, hot off the presses. Yes, WoW in Australia is fine, although I would expect that it will probably not be so fine later on, because that's just the way that the Australian censorship tends to go. Now, I'm going to have to battle through this show with a very sore throat. I do not care. I will have some grit, because good lord, the rest of my country certainly hasn't. Oh my god, there's a bit of snow! What are we going to do? Close all the schools! Oh, grow up! Seriously, get some bottle! I trudged a mile back through the snow tonight in an incredibly thin blue shirt and a pair of trousers which really do not keep me very warm at all. Does it matter? No! Get a spine and try and act like a proper Englishman. I cannot understand it. Whining and crying and, it's so cold. Big deal. Get into work, get off your lazy arses, get to school and stop making excuses. Seriously. God loves those who help themselves. My name is Total Biscuit and you're listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio. This song needs no introduction, so it ain't gonna get one.